This is Brent, by the way. Brent Allen Winters. I'm here with Miss Francine. CommonLawyer.com, www.commonlawyer.com, and we're coming at you from the remote hinterlands of the Wabash River Valley bottoms, where the hogs, the frogs, and the dogs keep up a racket all night long. This is a Common Lawyer Comments concerning our common law. Question 211, we're talking about our common law tradition, the law of the land, the way we do things, not the outcome, but the way we do things. That's our common law, not the outcome, not the outcome standards such as the Ten Commandments, but no, the process, the course of our common law, as our organic documents put it, such as the Northwest Ordinance of 1787. And that's biblical, friends, no question about it. Does the President of the United States take an oath of office? And the answer is yes, he does. Before we go to what is an oath? That's the question. Question 212, what is an oath? Answer, according to Arthur J. Stansbury, 1828. It is a solemn calling upon God, who knows the hearts of all men and will call every man to account for his conduct in this world, to bear witness that what a man says is true, or that what he promises he means to perform. It's a calling upon God. An oath is a calling upon God. For what reason? Asking him to enforce the promise that you're making. You're calling in a greater, a more powerful party to enforce the promise you're making. What does the Bible say about that? The law of God in the Old Testament over and over is clear. And the New Testament as well, Jesus Christ confirms it, the law of God. And the law is this: if you ever take an oath, that means call in someone greater than you to enforce the promise that you're making, or visit you with vengeance if you don't. Let's put it that way. If you do that, you only do it by the maker of heaven and earth and nobody else. Jesus Christ points out in the Sermon on the Mountain that the Pharisees were swearing by the gold on the temple, or swearing by the temple. What did he say? He said, don't swear by any created thing, whether it be the temple, the gold on the temple. Don't swear by the heavens. That's a created thing. That's not the creator. Don't swear by the earth, for that is God's footstool. That's not the creator. That's not God. That's his part of his creation. Do not swear by any created thing. Is swearing biblical? You bet it is. Contrary to the doctrine of the Quakers and many other groups that say it isn't. Why do they say it? Because in the Sermon on the Mount, King James says, do not swear. It says, do not swear holy. W-H-O-L-L-Y. Do not swear holy. Now, if it said do not swear, well, that'd be a problem, because the law of God gives us that option to swear carefully and only by the maker of heaven and earth, the creator of all things, him and no other, him and no more. But it doesn't just say do not. Jesus Christ does not say do not swear. He says do not swear holy. Now that word, the King James word holy, is, I don't know what it meant back then, but it certainly does not mean what the Greek word means now. Precisely what that Greek word rendered holy, it doesn't work now, whatever it is. I don't know what they thought it meant then. But what the word means is generally, broadly. I never tell a lie. By God, I never tell a lie. That's false swearing. And that's swearing holy and generally. Never, don't say that. No, if you're going to swear, swear very tightly to a very specific thing. You're on the witness stand in this particular instance, and you have sworn, calling God in to witness your promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. What does that apply to? It applies to that right now. I think I've said this. I'll say it again. I think I have to go back and count again, either 4 or 5 times in my life, I've sworn an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. Once, as a county prosecutor for a very short period of time, I filled out another man's term by request. I had to take that oath. Why? The Constitution of the United States requires it for all officers of state government and all officers of the general government in Washington, D.C. There's that word general again. Our Constitution says that the Constitution is for the general welfare. There's that word general again. We are not to swear generally. There's that word general again. Dad said yesterday at Okinawa, where he was, he saw General Buckner just before he was killed. He was telling me this yesterday. General Buckner was the highest ranking officer killed during the war. He was a general officer. There's that word again. What is it? What is a general officer? Why do we use the word general? Why did Jesus Christ say, do not swear generally? That's an accurate way to say it now. He didn't say do not swear. And I can point out at least half a dozen places in Paul the Apostle's 2 epistles to the Corinthians where he swears an oath. Why would people be foolish enough? I don't know why they do it. Say, oh, Jesus Christ said never swear, and then never explain why Paul is doing it if that's what it means. Well, that's not what it means. The law of God says yes. There's times to swear an oath, but be very, very careful. Of course, the Quakers and other groups are like the Pharisees. They were afraid, and they didn't. They said, well, we'll never say God's holy name, Yahovah. We'll never say that. That way we don't take a chance of taking his name in vain. So if we just don't say it, then we're okay. Well, the Bible doesn't say that. It just says, do not take his name in vain. It doesn't say anywhere, don't say it just to be safe. As a matter of fact, he has a name, so we know what it is and we use it. Well, same thing with swearing. The Quakers say, well, the safe thing to do is just not swear at all. So thou shalt, you don't swear. That's our doctrine. No, no, no. That's building law. That's man-made law, friends. That's setting up a barrier, a buffer zone that God never set up. That's adding to the word of God to say, well, let's just be safe and don't do it. That's like saying, God says I'm not supposed to murder anybody. So if I never kill anybody, then I will never break that. I'll just set up a buffer zone. And whether homicide is justifiable or not, murder, I'm just not going to do it that way. I'll never murder anybody. What if somebody pulls a gun on you and got it cocked and loaded and swears he's going to blow your brains out if you don't do what he says? Well, I'll just let him kill me. That way I won't be guilty. No, you're guilty at that point because you allowed another man to break God's law and take your life from you, and you have a responsibility to preserve your life. You're sinning. Don't add to the word of God, friends. It doesn't say, Jesus Christ did not say, do not swear. No, he's here. He's saying these things to uphold the law of God in the Old Testament. He begins that whole Sermon on the Mount there, saying, do not think I came to destroy the law. No. I didn't come to destroy it. I came to flesh it out, to show you how it works. So, swearing can be a duty. And the Westminster Confession, what's that? Well, that's the confession, men trying to tell Parliament back during the English Civil War what they need to know so that their legislation won't transgress what the Bible says. And they make the point in there. Swearing an oath, listen to me. They're right. Listen to what they say. Swearing an oath is an act of religious worship. Swearing an oath, let me repeat that. Swearing an oath is an act of religious worship. Why? Well, shucks, you're calling in your lawgiver, your God, to visit his vengeance upon you if you don't keep the promise you've sworn to keep. That's what an oath is. And this guy does, he says the right things about an oath. Question 213. What is the president's oath of office? Answer. It is in these words. Listen to this oath. This oath's a little different. We'll talk about it. The President of the United States, when he swears an oath, he says, I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States, and I will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. Preserve the Constitution of the United States. That's a solemn oath. And you're not to swear. These guys that put their hand on the Quran, God commands against that. You're swearing by false testimony. That's not God's evidence. If you believe that, God hasn't enlightened your eyes to the truth, to the reliability and the badges of what true evidence is and its reliability. Well, we do like the Constitution says, affirm. It says we can affirm. Well, if you affirm, what you're saying is, I'm telling you, I rely on myself to tell the truth. I affirm. In other words, you're swearing by yourself. You're swearing upon your own ability to enforce your promise. The Bible forbids that. Does the Constitution say that? Yes, it does. Is that proper? No, that is not proper. As a matter of fact, why does it say that? Why does it give you the option to swear or affirm? It does that in deference to the thousands of Quakers that lived in Pennsylvania and were a very powerful political class. And they did not want to exclude them. It wouldn't have worked. Pennsylvania probably wouldn't have ratified the Constitution if you hadn't added that word affirm. But it's false, friends, and it's not biblical. Do I think I'm going to change the world or the Quakers or anybody else on that point? No, I don't know that I will. But it's my duty to say it, and I intend to say it, and I'm saying it now. Affirming is the height, affirming that you'll tell the truth, just say, I affirm, is the height of arrogance. It's swearing on your own authority, swearing, promising that you will enforce your own promise. God said, don't do that. That's trusting the arm of that's trusting yourself. What is our national motto, my friends? In God we trust. That precludes trust in all other persons, including yourself. I was talking to my son here recently. He said, do you trust me? I said, you know I don't trust you. You're Christian. I've taught you better. And he laughed. I said, Paul the Apostle, I told him this. Paul the Apostle says, I don't even trust myself. Why would I trust you? I said, true. When I have people come into my office, they want legal help, I'd say to them, well, you want to be my client? Yeah. Well, you write me a check and it'll make it real. Write a check. And then I'd say, now let's start with this. I want you to know that I do not trust you. And if you trust me, you're a bigger fool than I thought you were. Now, do you understand that? I mean, I do that right up front. Tell them. Our trust is for God alone. God alone. And you can trust God, of course, that God will use me for your benefit. And I will trust God that you will help me and be honest with me. But no, we're not to trust each other. That's fundamental Christian doctrine right out of the Bible. It's blatant, it's non-ambiguous, it's clear as day. But why don't we think it all the way through and say that? Well, that's true. Well, this is his oath. I solemnly swear I will faithfully execute to the best of my ability. It doesn't say support and defend the Constitution of the United States. That's the oath I took. I took it 4 times as a military man and once as a prosecutor, something like that. I said that when I prosecute around a military man, I will support and defend against enemy the Constitution of the United States. Well, what's that? Well, that's our common law applied to government. The law of the land. That's what it is. I will support and defend the law of the land against enemies, foreign. That means I'm willing to take up a deadly weapon and defend the land as a member of the militia. And enemies, domestic. That means that's an ancient oath, by the way, in our common law tradition, going back by records almost 1,500 years that we know of. Defend the land by force of arms if necessary as a member of the militia. Number two, the law of the land, I swore to defend it on the jury. That's how you defend the law of the land domestically. And to defend the law of the land is to defend our land. And to defend the land is to defend the law of the land, because the land is the law of God is the law of the land. It comes from the land. It's to defend the land. The land is the entrusted property of God's trust settlement arrangement with his people. That's why he wants us to swear to defend it. Well, if an oath doesn't add any new duty, why do we have it? Because it strengthens a duty. It's intended to awaken the conscience to a duty we already have. Listen to me. If you make a promise and don't swear, don't take an oath that you'll keep your promise, is that really any different than just making a promise? No, it's not any different. God takes both of those very seriously, and he will hold you to them. But when you swear an oath, that is designed to awaken your mind a little bit and say, stop, wait a minute, let's get solemn here. What am I doing? Oh, I'm making to cause you to stop and think about your promise and think about your maker. An oath, the Westminster Confession, makes this biblical observation. An oath is an act. I'm repeating myself. An oath is an act of religious worship. Why? Because you're calling your maker in, the God of your salvation, to enforce your promise. Oh, the president here says he swears to preserve the Constitution of the United States. Why does he say preserve, and all the rest of us that are in state and federal government say defend? Why? Because he is commander-in-chief of all militiamen that he musters into service if he decides it needs to be done, and the Constitution says when he can do that and for what reasons. It's all very well laid out in the militia clauses. But once he musters the men, he's not the defender. He's not the one taking up arms. He's the commander-in-chief. And his job is to see to it and orchestrate and defend by commander-in-chief. Whatever he does, he's to focus on preserving, to keep it intact. Ours is to defend by force of arms, enemies foreign, by serving on the jury, enemies domestic. Question 214. Okay, what are the powers which belong to the President of the United States? Answer. He is commander-in-chief. That phrase, in chief, is a common law phrase. It has specific meaning at common law. That means the main thing. It's not hard to understand, but it is a common law phrase. When we do trials, we have what we call our case in chief. In chief. That means what we do at trial that governs everything else we do at trial. Commander-in-chief means what the president does that governs everything else. He's in charge. He is the general officer. Oh, yeah. General. That means his commands apply to all those hundreds of thousands of people under him. See? That's why we call them general officers. He, as commander-in-chief, is that too. General officers. General. Yes. Are the officers of the militia obliged to obey his orders? Well, he's the commander-in-chief, both of the Army, the Navy. Every officer of both, from the highest to the lowest, is obliged to obey his orders. Are the officers of the militia obliged to obey the president's orders? Answer: yes. Whenever the militia are called out into the service of the United States, and he's the one that has the power to do that for the specific reasons the Constitution sets forth in the form one of the four militia clauses, not all of them, one of them, there are four. And if you're interested in the militia clauses, please go to commonlawyer.com and take our law school course. Sheriff Darleaf and I from Berry County, Michigan, Sheriff, he's up there. We teach that, and we taught about the militia clauses of our Constitution. You can find that course. Yes, it says whenever the militia are called into the service of the United States by the President of the United States, and it just drops a footnote, at other times the militia are called out under the command of the governors of their own states. And whoever calls the militiaman out first has jurisdiction over the militiaman. If the President of the United States calls the militiaman out first, then the governor of the state doesn't have jurisdiction over that militiaman. If the governor of the state calls the militiaman out first, then the president does not have jurisdiction over that militiaman to call him out. It's called a concurrent jurisdiction. Well, this principle also applies to the National Guards in each state. The National Guard is not the militia, but the same principle applies. For example, when the so-called riots occurred in Southern California not too long ago, President Trump called out the California National Guard. Well, once he called out the California National Guard, the governor had no authority over the National Guard. He beat him to the punch. Well, the governor, his name is Newsom, he went to the mat and they went to court, and it went to the Supreme Court of the United States, and the Supreme Court of the United States said to the governor of California, Newsom, he is a Newsom person, isn't he? He's a nuisance. He's a nuisance. Yeah. Well, he is Newsom, he's noisome, but the Supreme Court of the United States said, no, he has the power to call out the militia, and if he does it before you, then you got to wait till he's done with them. It was a wise thing for Trump to do. If Newsom had called him out, he'd probably had him stand down, do nothing, and they'd have tried to burn down the entire Los Angeles basin and all the cities contained therein. Because chaos is the only way the Democrats are going to ever gain control again. They've got to have chaos. They can't get a majority. That's the way it always is with the left. Revolution, their doctrine is revolution. Revolution means chaos, and then evil men seize power. Always. Yes, always. And keep in mind, our war for separation from Britain was not a revolution. No, not at all. We were not trying to avenge the past. A revolution tries to avenge the past. A revolution tries to get rid of all the past. No. What we wanted to do was establish the past. We said so. We wanted our common law tradition. We were trying to establish our ancestral law, religion, law, and government. That's what we wanted, and we did. That's not revolution. Revolution is part of the culture of the law of the city. All of South America is under the law of the city. The canon civil laws of Rome, every government. What are they known for down there? Revolution. Revolting. This is Brent, by the way. Brent Allen Winters. I'm here with Miss Francine. Commonlawyer.com, www.commonlawyer.com, and we're coming at you from the remote hinterlands of the Wabash River Valley bottoms, where the hogs, the frogs, and the dogs keep up a racket all night long. This is a Common Lawyer comments concerning our common law.